everybody, and welcome to another episode of the show. Today, we're going to start talking about the second side of the Beach Boys Today album, starting with Please Let Me Wonder. And when we start to get into the second side of Today, things took a little bit of a turn production-wise. It's fairly famous for being, the Today album is fairly famous for being one half up-tempo rockers and one half ballads. And that's pretty much true, but it's also, the first half is kind of an older production style, and the second half gets into some newer production ideas. And it's not a black and white situation, but there is a difference, and we're gonna get into that, starting with Please Let Me Wonder today. And as such, I've made the decision to start talking about other families of instruments than just guitars and basses. I had hoped to be able to demonstrate a lot of this stuff on the actual real instruments, saxophones, drums, whatever. But between the various circumstances keeping me away from those instruments, I think I'm just going to start talking about them anyway and filling in with virtual VST instruments when it's appropriate, and I think it'll just make more sense to talk about them all at once rather than coming back to them whenever I can, get home to my drum set or afford a baritone saxophone or whatever. So look for that going forward, and I think we can just go right into the track analysis mode. I will see you there. Oh, but first, say hello. Yes. Say hello to Missy. We'll see you. We'll see you in track mode. Bye.
Right, here we go. You're grass and I'm a power mower. Take.
And hello and welcome to Track View. If you've ever wondered about the production on Please Let Me Wonder, then wonder no more, because here we are to talk about it. On Please Let Me Wonder, there's just a few things I wanted to highlight in talking about the bass and the guitar section, but also the sax section, which I think is really nice. The sax is pretty much buried many feet underground in the final mix, and even on the session tape, they're almost inaudible. So I really had to work hard to pull them out, and I'm looking forward to sharing those with you. So let's talk about the track. The bass was, in my opinion, a Dan Electro 6-string that Brian asked Carol to play, Carol K. And the reason I think that is explored in a little more depth in another video I did specifically on the Dan Electro 6-string bass. But in a nutshell, it's a distinct sound from those slacker, thinner strings. And you get it from heavy palm muting and heavy pick work. It's just harder to get on a Fender bass. It's not impossible, but there's just a looseness to it. And it's an interesting production decision either way, because it's not a pretty sound. It's this kind of rumbly, heavy sound on an otherwise very pretty, I think you could call the track a very pretty track. So that's what the bass sounds like. Whether it was a Fender or a Dan Electro, you may never know for sure, but I'd bet a lot on it being a Dano, and that's what I used. The guitars include Carl Wilson on a 12-string. Here's a little bit of what that sounds like. He's clearly playing through an amp's vibrato unit, and since he's also in the control booth, that means that they ran a signal out into the room, mic'd it up, and then Carl could hear it back in the control booth. There's not a lot of talk, as I mentioned in previous videos, about doing that sort of amping while the player is in the booth, but I wish there were.
because it's kind of interesting. It's very common now, but you just don't hear it talked about with the Beach Boys. You'll hear that with the vibrato, it kind of has different subtle, like psychoacoustic effects on both the lower octave and the higher octave in the 12-string pair. It sounds weird enough on the higher octave that I thought it was the harmonica that is on the contract for a while. But after further listening, realized that whenever Carl stopped playing, that line stopped playing too. And then you can kind of put it together that it's just the vibratoed upper octave of the 12-string, and that there is no harmonica on the track, that's some kind of mistake, which I talk about in my video about harmonicas. So there's what Carl's contribution sounds like. Just little accents and fills, like he's been doing for this whole album for the most part, and would continue to do occasionally for the next album and a half. Now there's 3 acoustic guitars, and this is definitely coming from an earlier place of the wall of sound. Brian just groups them together en masse. They're locked in mono on the original, of course, so they're just this nice wall of acoustic guitars. I've separated them in the stereo spectrum so you can hear them a little better. It's a nice big sound. I'm hearing 2 arch tops, maybe 3 arch tops, but definitely 2, and then 1 dreadnought or concert style acoustic. They all play in slightly different registers of the neck, the fretboard, to cover some different parts of the octave. And then at least 2 of them in the chorus play a nice little complement to one of the vocal lines. Do you hear it? Bum, 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 bum. There's the saxes. I'll just play a little bit of everything so you can hear that together in context. Really relies on the acoustic guitars to kind of drive the rhythm section forward. And Carl also plays that little vocal double. Alright, so here's the sax section. I'm just going to let it play through with everything. You can hear how nice it is. So you can hear what a nice little addition to the song it is. I'm so sorry that it's not higher in the final mix, because it's kind of nice. And here's what it sounds like just by itself, so you can really hear it. Forgive the fact that they're not real saxophones. see, isn't that nice? I think Brian really starts to use saxophones in a different way from this point on. Before he's coming out of the idiom of sort of rock and roll sax playing, but now he's moving into using saxes and other wind instruments truly as a wind section, and as such, often a complement to the vocal parts that the Beach Boys end up singing. And that's definitely what he did here. Of course, you can't hear the saxes on the actual recording, but later I'm going to show you how the Beach Boys' backing vocals and the saxes came together really nicely. So let's just talk about one more quick thing, and that's the organ and the electric guitar overdub. The organ was just a cheap transistor organ, not a B3, and you can really hear how it's just a less robust sound. I used a Farfisa emulation. Again, sort of an interesting production decision to go with this cheap, thin sound along with the rough Dan Electro bass sound for what's otherwise this very pretty, beautiful song. The guitar overdub has this nice slap back on it, the tape slap. It adds kind of, I don't know, urgency. I think I got that pretty close. And that's that. That's what I wanted to talk about. Look forward to, I guess the next one would be I'm So Young. I'll be coming out within a week or so, and I'm also working on a video, a little more personal video on why all this seemingly unimportant Beach Boys production minutia is so important to me. So we'll see you then, and coming right up after this is just a little mix of the Beach Boys backing vocals with the saxes as I transcribe them. So enjoy that. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.